What are the practices that are really a map for you in understanding how to die fearlessly and to live fearlessly?
Mm, well, kids can teach us a lot about that, which is just really being in a moment to moment and just feeling the wonders of life. As far as I'm concerned, where we live on this amazing earth that has created with all this level of biodiversity, even though it's seemingly withering right now, it's really we can only walk around with singing hallelujah, even with all the pain and suffering, because this is where we live. Um, but when it comes to we forget about that. We just got caught up with our ideas of what we think it's important. Um, or lately what I'm noticing this happening in North America is this wave of self improvement, of self betterment, or all this kind of a cluster that we put around ourselves. The modern philosopher, Korean and German philosopher Byung-Chul Han, talks about that a lot in A Burnout Society. And he actually says that we are in a risk of losing love. My teacher, Andrew Feldmer, also says that we are in a risk of losing language. So we are in a very precarious time, when each and every one of us needs to be on that life force so fearlessly and fight. And I'm going to use the word fight because fight for it, for ourselves, fight for it for our Indigenous friends, fight for our Black people of color, fight for our society to bring that love back and that language that makes sense back. Um, and one of my biggest passion of it is dying and death and dying. I'm coming from the culture where we were practicing a vigil. So we're staying with the body for 3 days after death. We have weeping songs that are coming. One is coming, we're calling it yelling, yelling that comes from a man. So when the person comes, then the man comes in and he yells and screams. And then after that, the woman comes in and she continues with the weeping songs. And these weeping songs are, you actually pay these people to come in and do your funeral so that you can extract the grief from the heart of the family. And that grief, that rawness of that grief and sadness, and which is grief is more than just a sadness. It's the complexity. I don't think it's even emotion. It's just this ways that we connect with the depth of the tragedy, of the fact that we live here so little, such a little flicker of time, and then we're just gone, um, is where the fertile ground is of the life. So my biggest goal is, one of my biggest goal is to actually bring death home. So I'm belonging in the Shambhala Center where I'm practicing with my fellow practitioners. We're forming a group called the Art of Dying, and we're actually working more on that kind of organizational level of how can we, with all the baby boomers, we're going to have a lot of death now happening, and we're not prepared, just as we were not prepared for this pandemic. We're not prepared of how to take care of our elders. We're just not simply prepared. So how to be ahead and prepare and not give this preciousness of being present with the body, wash the body, stay with the body, learn from the body, even after death, not just during this dying processes, is something that we want to bring home. So we don't want to just land it into the funeral homes that we know are based on this capitalist organizations, that they're just there to make money. and it's possible. I lost my husband in 2012, and we did this ceremony of keeping the body back at home. And I washed the body and being present with the body, and then put the coffin in the living room. And we opened the door so people can come in and meditate in the silence with the body. Now, to link this with what we were talking about, the primary respiration, Farah, is that according to the osteopathy, as well as according to Tibetan Buddhism, who studied a lot about the states of the consciousness around and after death, both of them, so we're talking science and spirituality that has invested a lot in understanding what's happening after death, agree on one thing, is that when the life force ends, it's not like you're going to turn the electricity or maybe a water pipe, because we're more water. You can't just say, I'm turning a water pipe off, and then that's it. There is still water going through the pipe. And not only through the pipe of the physical body, but this primary respiration, it's still present. And when the osteopath worked, and my osteopath, Suzanne Pinot, worked with Winston, with my husband, and she says that the 3 days, his life force is actually stronger during the time of death. And in the 3 days after death, of course, withering away, but first day stronger, and then lesser and lesser and lesser, you can feel it, that it encompasses the entire room. So that means that this subtle mind, which is not our brain mind. Our brain mind is, I call it kindergarten mind. It's a very little of what we have with our frontal cortex that we can understand. But the big mind, in yoga we talk about the shunya, the shushumna, this quality of the that looks apparently empty, but where all the nadis and the channels dissolve into. And this dissolution practices are very important in Tibetan Buddhism. Is like, this is still alive, and in fact, actually, this is the body of wisdom. So if this stays for 3 days, and if we want to just have our dead people shuffled into some kind of a morgue, into a freezer, and just completely disconnect from them, we're losing on it. Because in my tradition, we are learning from the death. The death is like a rite of passage, not just for the person that is dying, but also for us who are staying alive. So when my husband died, they were little kids, they were elders, they were laughters, they were cries, they were stories, they were, all of that was present in the room on the 3rd day, because everything is welcomed. So when you say how the grief, I don't know how the grief does that. There is something about grief involving all of it. And then you're weeping of this lost life. As Martin Prechtel, who is one of the shamans from Mayan Tutuhilu village, says, the grief and the praise, there are the two sides of the same coin. Apparently in the Tutuhil language, it says that they sleep in the same bed. The more you connect with the depth of grief, just like you're talking about the depth of trauma, the more stronger you are, the more alive you are, the more connected you are. The more we contemplate on death, the more we appreciate life.